Chief Brian Wood, can you tell us what we know at this point about Maddie?
Well, from last April 19th, she was last seen at her residence around 2 p.m. Through the course of investigation, we've discovered that she left her residence and attended a residence on Walton Street. And when she was at that residence for a few hours, she left with a male companion. They walked towards the Farmer Save area, and that was the last she was seen. She evidently left to walk to a friend's house, and a series of texts went unanswered from her mother. And that's the last that anybody has seen of her. There's been no contact since, and it's been almost 30 days now.
Unusual?
It is unusual, but it does occur. I mean, there are several missing people in Ontario, but the circumstances here are unique for Port Hope. We haven't seen this before.
So it's unusual for Maddie, obviously.
I don't know her personally. From the information from the family, this is unexpected. There are a lot of things involved with this investigation that are pointing us in certain directions to try to get to know exactly what her background, who she might have been involved with prior to this. It's painstaking work, but our criminal investigators are on that.
I believe her father put out something that she could be involved as an unwilling partner in the sex trade, if I worded that right.
Well, we coined it as human trafficking because, sorry, I'll go back for a second. We've recently had information that she's possibly being human trafficked. The problem is the information that we're getting is that she could be anywhere from Montreal down through Windsor. And we found out to media outlets through those areas as well as every police service in between. And we're getting assistance and tips as much as we can, and it's quite voluminous. And our criminal investigators are sifting through that. But it does take time, but there's been just zero reports of anybody who can confirm or send us a photograph or anything. There's tips, but tips are unsubstantiated at this point.
What makes it more unusual, I believe, and please correct me, is the cell phone just sort of stopped all of a sudden. So that sort of might correlate what is believed to be happening with her.
That's all part of the investigation. Of course, that's a sign that she's being manipulated. And typically, people who human traffic young ladies take total control of their life. They don't pay them. They don't give them any access to electronics or any way to communicate with friends or family. They usually use their historic issues, could be drug addiction, could be anything else, to sort of imprison them and keep them under their control. And so the phone piece was, interestingly enough, turned over to a friend with a SIM card missing, and that's quite strange. But it's indicative of that possible situation.
And now, I believe today, there's a $10,000 reward.
I just heard that too. Maybe Katie, you have a little more information on that. I don't think that's not through us. I think that's through the family and through the community.
As a father, what would you know what I mean? This pulls at every parent's heartstrings. Tell me about I can't imagine something like this happening.
Well, I think it's just the unknown bit. It's a child, so every parent, regardless, any parent, no matter how old they are, will tell you, no matter how old the child gets, it's still your child. So there's always that piece, especially if your child's vulnerable, and that becomes even more so. And the unknown part is would be tearing at the heartstrings of the family. Personally, I can't speak to the experience. I've never gone through something like that, but I can imagine the horrors of the nightly thoughts that go through your mind. And so we're working with the family best we can to support them. And hopefully this comes to a positive end soon.
Inspector Katie Anders, can you tell us a little bit about some of the signs that make this more worrisome? You were mentioning before about how no signs in terms of banking information, things like that have been done lately.
Yes, and that's not uncommon. I know a lot of people maybe outside the police community aren't aware or familiar with human trafficking, but it's very, very common for victims to become victims of human trafficking because there probably may already be a victim from previous incidents in their life. They may be distant from their family. They may have a drug habit, and perhaps the trafficker picks up on this, and they take that victim and they take them away from home, and they tell them they're going to buy them all this stuff that they need, and they provide them with their drugs if that is what they need, and they take their phone. And they keep telling the victim that I'm going to give you money for this, you are going to earn this, but that victim never gets that money. And it's a victim of domestic assault or whatever it may be. They become to trust that person that's harming them the most. And we all are part of human trafficking in the province, and we take ongoing training about how to speak to victims of human trafficking. They don't always trust us if we say the wrong thing or don't say the right thing, and how do we get them separated from perhaps a trafficker that maybe beats them or is going to harm them or do something else to them. So that's a real topic here today for human trafficking. We have had a lot of tips, as the chief has said. Some of those tips have said that Madi could be involved in human trafficking. There's reports that she could have been seen in Montreal and as far as Windsor. And with human trafficking, like other crimes that happen, it's very easy to come into the 401. There's usually hotels, motels right there, and simply get off and move to the next city. So we need to be aware of that. And victims, even though they went with the trafficker, they can't get out of that situation. Any victim, if you look at any victim in a situation, like I said, a domestic, so it's not that easy for any victim to just reach out and call their family.
And one of the things that is of concern is nothing in the way of no credit cards or anything has been used by her since this, which causes more concern. In other words, if she just wanted to move away, she may not want to be whoever in touch with her friend or whoever, but given the fact that there's been no transactions anyway with her banking information, it heightens that danger.
That's correct, because again, the trafficker is taking all that money the victim is earning for the tricks that they may be doing. So the trafficker doesn't allow any money. He will pay for, and there's been women too that are traffickers, they pay for perhaps the things that are needed. So it is not uncommon for a victim to not have a bank card or use their bank card because the trafficker is keeping all that from them. And they could be from other countries and they keep their passports. So it's a very large trade. So for that to be happening does lead us to believe that it could be human trafficking.
Corridors, 401 corridors are perfect throughway for something in human trafficking. Just like you say, from hotel to hotel.
Absolutely. Zip off. How many hotels do we know of? You think about just along the 401, along the way we have the Comfort Inn, and they're all along the 401. They go in, they make their victim work, they get in the car and off they go. Because the traffickers often educated in this. Oftentimes it's organized crime, oftentimes it's not organized crime, it's traffickers. And they've done this for a long time because the money is huge.